Okay, I'm going to call the May 14th Select Board to order at 5:38 p.m. And we have already performed the Pledge of Allegiance. Should we do it again?
No, it's fine.
Okay. All right. Do we have anything to add or delete to the agenda?
I don't have anything, any additionals.
Okay. Chris is here. Do you have anything you need to bring to our attention?
I asked to be put on the agenda for some culverts.
From some culverts? Okay. Sarah, Chris is asking to be added to the agenda for some culvert updates, so I will.
Well, it's under administrative matters. He's spent some money and it requires a motion. So It'll be under the orders, under administration. And he'll just have a discussion about the orders.
Okay. Okay. So I'll just put Chris in here.
1A.
1A. Okay. And you
Unless there's anything else he wanted to discuss besides the expense.
Anything else?
Chris?
He's thinking.
Good.
Okay. So I'm going to start with the administrative matters. I'm going to move that we approve the signing of the orders for 5/8/25 in the amount of $413,769.67 and payroll for 4/29/25 for $13,765.61.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Chris, why don't you bring us up to speed on the culverts?
So we had 3 sinkholes developed, 2 on Wheelerville, 1 on Wright Road.
During this rain?
Previous to this rain, that were due to culverts that had failed. We had culverts at the garage. I used what I could, but I purchased 2 sticks, an 18-inch and a 24-inch stick of culvert from FW Web.
Okay.
To be able to finish replacing what was damaged on the roads. But that account, I was supposed to ask you first and then purchase said culverts.
Okay.
So I did it in reverse, so I'm apologizing for that.
Thank you.
But the second piece of that is, besides the bill that's there for the 2 20-foot sticks, the 18 and the 24, I'm asking for permission to get 6 more sticks of 24-inch culvert and 6 more 18-inch culverts, because we have a lot to do.
Sarah, is that all stuff that's within the budget? You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, these will actually be paid for out of the Bridge and Culvert Fund. So, yeah.
So did we approve, so we should just make a motion to approve that, or just?
Yeah, does he have a cost or no?
I came to get permission first. I can get you a slip of what it costs.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, why don't you do that? Do you have use, you know where you're putting these?
Yes.
I think it's a good idea to have them in-house.
It was very handy.
Yeah.
We do have on Heather Lane, there was a sinkhole last winter that we patched, but the culvert has once again started to fail. It's a 24-inch culvert, but it's deep. It needs to be done. But it's, unfortunately, a lot of these roads, it's a stick and a half, 2 full sticks, so you're using 2 culverts at each time. So my request was to be able to absorb what we're finding in these roads.
Okay. So why don't you, once you know how much the whole thing is that you're buying, just get it to Sarah, then she can send it out to us
Thank you.
to let you know. Okay?
Okay.
All righty.
Yeah, so Megan, just let me interrupt. As for a procedural matter, because we're spending funds out of a reserve fund, it requires a motion by the select board to spend that money.
Okay.
So this is why he was looking for the authority from the select board to spend out of the reserve fund, which is fine. He would either come in with a quote with you, or it could be on the like a separate order for you to make a motion to spend out of the reserve fund. So that's why I advised Chris to come in and ask you about the culvert expense today so that he could spend it out of the reserve fund. So it's fine to have this, the marching orders that he has the authority to go purchase the culverts and bring you back the amount for approval for payment. That gives Joy the authority to cut the check and the treasurer to sign once you do that. So that's just a procedural matter when we spend expenses out of reserve funds.
Okay.
And then the other housekeeping order, we kind of skipped through accepting the agenda by a motion. So I'm going to request that you make a motion to accept the agenda, but we also just noticed that public comment was not added to the agenda. So we should add that as the next order of business.
So we're going to put it in, where should we put it?
Probably after announcements.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And then
So-
if you move to approve.
So do I,
How he does it, you're
so
not gonna follow that, you're gonna do it a different way.
Brian,
Follow the procedure.
Brian,
Why don't we get the price? and then come back
Procedures,
to
do
you
not
and
speak
then-
out of turn. You're
So-
speaking out of turn.
I'm just
so,
saying, you just said the procedure and now we're changing the procedure.
I'm thinking I'm going to have to ask you to have Brian removed. He's just he's making our meeting impossible to have.
You just said there was procedure and then you changed the procedure.
So,
That's crazy.
Sarah,
Yes.
I'm just trying to remember, it's just been so chaotic here since we got here, I'm sorry. So I was supposed to make a motion to approve the agenda before we started. I don't remember doing that before.
Yeah, we do. We approve the agenda. If you have additions or deletions to the agenda, we make those motions as one of the first orders of business.
Okay.
So,
it sounds like I need to go back again.
yeah, to make a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of public comment after the announcements.
Okay. So I'm going to make a motion that we add to approve the agenda with adding the public comment after the announcements.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So then I need to make a motion that we are authorizing Chris to spend money out of the reserve fund for the culverts that he purchased and will be purchasing at FW Webb moving forward for the repairs that they have to do this summer. So I made that motion.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we're back on track. The minutes, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes for the April 14th, 2025 and April 30th, 2025.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So for announcements, we are having our open meeting law ethics conflict of interest and public record training for all Mendon elected and appointed officials from 6 to 7:30 in the town office on what date?
Oh, I'm sorry, June 9th.
On June 9th. Okay. The Barstow Bolt, the 1 mile fun run and 5K is August 23rd. All are welcome to attend. For more information, email thebarstowpto@gmail.com.
And I believe the select board's going to be doing a relay team for that.
Yeah.
I'm ready, let's go.
Yeah.
The fun run or the 5K?
I'll do
The fun run.
the swimming part of the triathlon. I'm always good for that. Okay, so now public comment.
I would like to say something. I don't have my iPad, so I don't have like the raise hand feature. So am I
Okay.
allowed to talk?
Yeah.
Go ahead,
So
Carol.
when I came to that ZBA meeting, Megan, you distinctly discriminated against me and told me that I needed to have the sheriff present for me to enter the building, when you lied right to my face and said that you were in the back room and you didn't know who was in there. And then I saw the video of you letting Gordon in, knowing with your husband and with all of the members of the ZBA and Mr. Stake's attorney that you were all in there having a private meeting with the door locked and keeping me out of there. I believe that you should resign. And Sarah Buxton, for your information, I don't believe that you actually live in the town of Mendon. And what you're using as an address is false. And unless you can provide otherwise any kind of legal documentation that you have a renter's agreement or an electric bill or any owned property in this town, I believe that you should resign also. And ladies, have a nice day. That includes you too, Seth.
Thank you. Okay. I am going to move forward with the ordinance, Sarah Buxton, that you sent out, and and we will go over it with what's our animal control guy? Sorry, Rod McQuaid. We'll review it with Rod, but I went and looked, and everything you've done is what we need to be consistent with the VLTC.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move. Do they have to be two separate motions, Sarah, or can I do one motion for the two?
No, I would do them separately, but I would also utilize the wording and the heading of the document as the motion to approve. It was formerly known as the Animal Control Ordinance. That will no longer be, and it is the dog and wolf hybrid ordinance.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that we approve the Town of Mendon ordinance regulating dogs and wolf hybrids.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Sarah, thank you for doing all this work on this. Now I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Town of Mendon records management and retention policy.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So do we, before we move on from those, is the retention policy, now, I mean, I read through it, it looks like we can get rid of some stuff. We don't have to.
Yes. Yes, so this is kind of long overdue. And so now Jesse, myself, and the staff in the office will be going through the files, and there's kind of clear direction in that retention schedule, what can be purged and what needs to be retained. So that will be a process. It'll take some time, but any duplicate correspondence, draft policies that we may have held on to because we didn't have this retention policy, those are all going to be able to be purged fairly easily. Outdated financial documents that are outside of the schedule to retain, which will include grant information as well as, old checkbooks. And
So this affects Chris also.
this will affect, it's retention of all town documents. So it is, it's across all of our offices.
Okay.
And we'll do a cheat sheet for employees and officials on what they specifically need to keep and transfer over and convey to Sarah or to Jesse when asked. And that will be part of the training in a few weeks.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Well, thank you for that.
Just a big thank you to Jessie. She worked really closely with the Secretary of State's office. A lot of towns overlook this important policy, and she worked really hard to make sure we were all clear on that. There's so many different types of documents and so many different categories for it, and that's why it's such a long policy. But big thanks to our town clerk for spearheading that piece.
Absolutely.
Well, and speaking of our town clerk, she has asked us to consider a wide format printer Ecare package for $2,059. This is for the printer that we bought with our money from ARPA. Yeah. From what Sarah and I discussed, it seems like because this is for retaining, documents, that we could possibly pay for this out of that reserve fund for, what's that reserve fund called, Sarah?
It's the preservation fund.
Preservation.
So we utilize that printer scanner to record maps digitally, and so it would be preserving those maps. This is going to be an ongoing contract. This happens to be the first 2-year contract, which we did have a gap in service, but they're letting us go back in order to cover what needs to be serviced right now. So.
Oh yeah, I see. It's from 8/1/24 to 8/1/26.
Correct. And this will come out of the preservation fund, and we will be working this expense into the timeline of the reserve fund going forward, similar to that we have an outline on that timeline of preserving books that are in the vault.
How much do we put into that reserve fund every year?
So we do not put in a lot. I'll pull that number out for you. I think it might be $1,000, but that fund is funded by recording fees. So the state does have a schedule of what amount of money needs to go into that fund from the $15 recording fee per page.
Okay.
So they dictate to us that we save money for the preservation.
Okay. But for this 2-year, we have the funds, and we're going to go ahead and take care of that.
Yep, we have the funds. We just have to rework the preservation fund to incorporate this expense. It will extend out how many books we can preserve on an annual basis, but it's an appropriate expense out of that fund.
Okay. Okay. So we are going to. Do I need to make a motion to approve that?
Correct.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we get the Ecare pack for 2 years for the wide format printer in the amount of $2,059 and pay for it through the preservation fund.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the next order of business, I don't think Sarah and Seth have been exposed to this TextMyGov proposal.
No.
So, it'll be interesting with Justin here and Chris to kind of have a little conversation. So we've been approached for a system that would allow us to send out text alerts to people that live in Mendon. So when we buy this package, if we buy it, we get all the phone numbers, all the cell phone numbers for people in Mendon. And then we send out a text and say, do you want to receive these messages from the town of Mendon? What I thought for our town, to get more engagement with our citizens, to remind people to pay their property taxes. A lot of people were late this year on the second payment because the sign couldn't be out there because of the snow. And it would be a way for Chris to send out road closures to people. And I think, if we did this, we'd want to be careful not to overwhelm people with the Selectboard meetings and all that. We could probably have people opt in that wanted to be reminded of changes in the Selectboard meetings or something. But I'm just wondering I think it'd be a great way to communicate to our residents, but I don't know. What would your thoughts? Do you have a cell phone? Do you get text messages?
I don't have a cell phone. Maybe I'll go to my regular phone.
Yeah.
But it is important to keep people engaged in Mendon. That seems to be one of our problems in Mendon, is keeping people engaged
Yeah,
in any part of this town. I do a lot over in Chittenden, and Chittenden's different for some reason.
yeah,
More people step up all the time to do stuff, and they communicate back and forth a lot. And this would be a good way to
yeah, I mean,
get
people,
going.
then I think one of the number one things would be the roads. So if,
Emergency.
if there's an emergency or when you close in Wheelerville, that message can go out. Taxes due, so many things. And I just feel like it would benefit us greatly. The problem is we don't have any way to pay for it unless we pay for it with funds that are left over from this year's budget, and then we put it in next year's budget. Correct,
How
Sarah?
expensive? How expensive is
What
it?
is it? What did you get them down to, Sarah?
So, it's $2,300 per year, and they require a 3-year contract. So, we were able to get them to waive the setup fee of $500. But we are looking at an expense of $6,900 that is currently not budgeted.
Yeah.
So, it really, looking at the service, it's greatly beneficial. The question is the cost benefit analysis justify the cost of the 23?
Chris has a comment about it.
If we're able to use it to talk about if there's flooding, if
Yeah.
there's a road closure because of a culvert,
Mm-hmm.
and you put it under hazard communication, if that was its primary source, and then you could have alerts to the select board or alerts to
Mm-hmm.
taxes or those things, could that be funded through partially something from either the garage or under public safety? If I'm then able to announce, like, right
Yeah.
now, my only way is to let Jessie know, and then she puts it on the town
Facebook,
website.
yeah.
underneath.
Right.
But
So
to be able
yeah.
to send out, so as a hazard communication piece
Great idea.
for public safety,
Mm-hmm.
if there was, I don't know how much is in that fund, but like from there, something along those lines. It would be nice to be able to let people know where we're working.
Absolutely.
If it requires
Oh, I-
a single lane. Right now, I have to call the watch officer for the state of Vermont. Like when we shut down Wheeler, I call them. Anybody who's signed up under the state's website would get that notification that that's what we did.
Right.
But this would be a more direct route that would be a town, literally town by town, Also for severe road conditions.
Yeah.
One of the things we get a lot of calls about is, hey, where are you guys? It's slippery.
Yeah.
There's 3 trucks. There's plenty of roads and we're trying to get to all of them.
But if you had some way of letting people kind of know,
Like, hey, if you don't have to go out,
yeah, yes.
or if your tires are bald, don't.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
Chris
or
would be
just-
utilizing this texting a lot.
Just all around, yeah, I mean, just all around knowledge of it is really
Sick.
bad out right
Yes.
now,
Yes.
Don't travel if you don't
Be
have to.
yourself and get
Sometimes
around.
it takes that
Yeah.
for people to realize, oh, maybe I won't go down to the store.
But I think under the
Public safety.
public safety, but as a hazard communication piece for the town,
Yeah.
Mendon is not immune to certain high volume snow or water events
Yep.
in recent history.
Mhm.
And even though some people will say they're 100-year storms,
No, they're not.
it was only 11 years between Irene and 2 summers
Yeah, that's
ago.
a,
Okay, so Sarah has her hand up.
I think just building on what Chris was alluding to, I would be curious to see if there would be a way to appropriate some of the funding across other budget buckets, such as, I don't know what we have, like for publication of, like with the town zoning regulations. I don't know what we've budgeted for the planning commission for the zoning rewrite. public hearings and things like that. Because we may possibly also be able to use it to say, there's a public hearing on updates to the zoning regs. See, click here to see the latest draft. So, I don't know, to the extent that we might allocate some of the cost either in year one or think about that in some way for multiple uses, whether it's in a hazard fund or roads or whatever, that might be something to at least think about.
Does Seth have any money in his fire budget?
Oh, actually, Seth, that's a really great idea. Both you giving over your budget, but I think, also
For fire here, huh? Which we don't have any of. I think I don't know what's in there. It's only been $100 a year, and then this year I requested $500 to buy gear.
Which is in fiscal year
goes
20.
on sale in the fall.
So we do have some room in the variable costs for fire calls. It's for fire calls. The year hasn't ended yet, so I don't want to knock on wood and say that there is. But Jesse and I are preparing for year end, which is at the end of June, and just doing a year to date right up until this meeting and the orders that you just signed. So you guys have mentioned areas of the budget that we haven't thought about with the zoning, because it would be getting information out there with that as well. Public safety reserve fund is kind of tapped out because we have the 3 dry hydrant projects.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of an unknown how much those projects are going to cost us, because we are not sure how much grant funds we're going to get for that. That grant will pay up to 50%. But there's also, up to $10,000, but then there's another pot of money that he can request. This is Troy Dare from the Rural Fire Protection Task Force. We do have a meeting with him on May 28th. So we can follow up with just to see if we can get a ballpark on how much funding we would get for the replacement of the dry hydrants, which may lead to additional funds in the public safety fund that could be allocated towards this initial cost. Now, I also have to clarify with TextMyGov, this is a 3-year contract. We might not have to come up with the money for the 3-year contract all up front. We would have to come up with the $2,300 for the implementation year.
Yeah.
However, the fiscal year 26 budget has already been set. So we would have to find the funds out of that budget to go towards contract year 2. And then we would be able to implement the cost in the budget process starting this fall for going before the voters in fiscal year 27. Can't believe I'm saying that number, fiscal year 27. But yeah, those would be the years that we would be spending the funds. Yeah.
Well, I think so Jesse was going to be calling the other towns in Vermont that are using this to see what kind of engagement they're getting. I think, we just need to keep this going. And now that we're getting to the end of the year, we can see where we might have but it'll touch on everything in our town. I mean, it's IT, it's IT, it's communication, it's public safety, it's kind of everything.
I'd like to make sure that when we, if we do go ahead, that we're thoughtful about, ideally it's a one-way communication and we're not opening up something where we need more staff to be able to manage, reply backs and stuff.
No, and most of it's preset, like.
Yeah. Like it's the first day of deer season, wear orange or something like that,
Yeah, exactly. Hunting season,
Yeah.
I think we could use it for a lot.
State trails are closed or, something like that for mud season.
Yeah, I think it'd be great for a community like ours that has so little communication happening.
Yeah, and so, for example, a real life situation that's going on right now, the town of Mendon is under construction at the end of Journey's End. It's a dead end road, and it really only affects, 7 houses. But this software allows you to target those 7 houses
Yeah.
with their funds. You can highlight them on a map and say, I want to send a message to all these people. So they would even be able to get a text the morning that we started to say, today's the day that the construction will start.
And the other thing too is like we could use it to promote recreational things. It's so funny to see you sit in front of that playground. It cracks me up. I keep thinking you're really there. We could talk, remind people of the playground, remind people. I just think it's a great tool, and I hope we can figure out how to do it.
Yeah, so stay tuned. We wanted to present it at this meeting and see if we garnered the support from the select board, which it looks like we have. So Jesse and I will continue to look at funds to see where we could get this.
And I said to the woman that did the proposal that we, would need, because it's a government contract, we need to go out to bid, but she said there is no one else doing it.
Right.
So,
So
source.
Yeah, we'll just contact the state and verify that. Other towns have implemented this in Vermont, so we'll just follow through and take a look at that to make sure that we're following the
I
policy.
think it's a great thing for us to do. Okay. All right. Well, with nothing else, I will adjourn the meeting at 6:09 p.m. Thank you.